How do we go from being, well, dead?
It worked. You're alive.
To becoming the most fearsome warrior in the solar system known as the Guardian. Well, it all boils down to one giant ball of light floating over Earth. Over the years, Bungie has advanced the story of Destiny through several expansions, and in this video, we'll cover all the released expansions so far. Destiny kicks off with an introduction of the mysterious Traveler, who arrived in Earth's galaxy sometime in the 21st century. What exactly the Traveler is, aside from a giant orb, still a mystery. What we do know is that the orb rules. This unknown being brought the Golden Age on Earth by giving humans the technology to venture to other planets. The Traveler also increased a human lifespan by 3 times. Seriously? Where's this Traveler in real life, man? However, this utopia didn't last for long, as an ancient enemy called the Darkness chased the Traveler to Earth, and to push it back, the Traveler sacrificed itself. This whole event was called the Collapse, and the Traveler's sacrifice gave birth to small robotic cubes known as the Ghosts. These ghosts now resurrect dead people who are chosen by the Traveler to be light bearers, and each ghost always accompanies its respective light bearer. Yeah, these guys sort of carry the Traveler's light within themselves. Also, the light bearers who pick up arms and choose to fight the darkness are called Guardians. After that introduction, we arrive at the Cosmodrome, an abandoned launch site in old Russia where a ghost resurrects a Guardian who's been dead for a long time and has no memory of the past. And this dude, my friends, is our protagonist. Since you can customize the protagonist in Destiny, we'll address them as they. Moving on, the cute little flying bot tells the Guardian just what the heck is going on. The ghost also says they need to find cover because the Guardian is in the Fallen's territory. No lollygagging. Just real quick, Fallen are insect-like aliens, and they're really dangerous. The ghost tells the Guardian that they must go to the last city on Earth, which is a haven and operations base for the Guardians. Straight out of death and fresh in luck, Guardian finds a jump ship that needs some minor repairs. But that's not a biggie when you have a literal supercomputer floating around. The Guardian fights off some Fallen and refreshes his skills while the ghost works on the ship, and they're good to go. As the ship flies away, a mysterious hooded figure watches silently. Who are you? Upon safely reaching the last city, the Guardian meets the Vanguard, leaders of the Guardians and the last defense of humankind. The big blue dude is Savala, the Titan Vanguard and the leader. Then there's Agora, the Warlock Vanguard, and Cade, the sarcastic Hunter Vanguard. After the introduction into the Space Force, the Guardian and his helpful ghost run a few errands, including one to make the ship capable of flying to other planets of the solar system. While searching, the duo makes an interesting discovery. A powerful AI called Rasputin has survived the collapse. Rasputin is pretty much active and is protecting something in the Cosmodrome. Guess we're gonna have to wait to find out what exactly that is. Anywho, Savala notices one of the Guardians he sent to Earth's moon has gone missing, so he sends the Guardian to see what the holdup is. The Guardian arrives on the moon, and they learn that the previous sent Guardian is dead, and his ghost is nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, just outside the Temple of Crota, a mysterious figure is watching our Guardian from afar. Seriously, enough with the eyeballing. Anyway, as the strange figure vanishes, the Guardian learns that the dangerous alien species, the Hive, is planning to invade Earth. Now, as for the mysterious stranger from the Cosmodrome, it turns out he's the Speaker. He literally speaks for the Traveler. The Guardian meets the Speaker, who fills in the Guardian on the Golden Age, the Collapse, and how the Traveler created ghosts. Also, bad news, the Darkness is coming back to finish the job, so the Guardian needs to, well, do his job. After a while, the Guardian also learns that the Hive has been around for a very long time, and they've seen many worlds taken by the Darkness. Also, these Hive suckers are waiting for their gods to return and kickstart the invasion. Oh, and the Guardian also learns about Crota, one of the Hive gods who once invaded the moon with his special sword. Anyway, the duo finds the sword of Crota and destroys it, believing it would be a wise decision to destroy such a powerful weapon. Really? Then the Guardian finds an interesting audio from Osiris, an exiled Vanguard commander. According to the audio, the shrines of Oryx need to be destroyed, which are basically big communication devices of the Hive. With the shrines destroyed, the Guardians break the communication link between the Hive and their god, but this is just the beginning of their troubles. Good guys never catch a break. On the ship, the Speaker reveals that the Hive is draining the Traveler of its light by some ritual, and they need it to be stopped. So the Guardian heads out and learns that these Hive sickos are using a shard of the Traveler against it somehow. With ease, the Guardian destroys it and ruins the day for the Hive. Once that's done, the Guardian arrives on Venus, to a colony built by the Ishtar Collective, who were a group of Golden Age scientists. Apparently, these scientists were studying the Vex, a nasty, time-traveling collective intelligence with only one goal: to convert everything in the universe into Vex machinery. That's ambitious. The Guardian now meets a mysterious masked woman who tells the Guardian about the Vex and its birthplace, called the Black Garden. The Guardian must destroy the Garden's heart to heal the Traveler further. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, no. Finding the Guardian is a bit of a challenge, so the ghost suggests taking the help of the Awoken. Interestingly, the Awoken are a subspecies of humans whose DNA was altered by the darkness, and the blue skin is just an aesthetic choice, maybe? The Guardian arrives on the Reef, the territory of the Awoken. There, they meet the Awoken Queen Mara and her arrogant brother Uldren. Surprisingly, Mara agrees to tell the Black Garden's location, but she wants the head of a Vex Gaylord in return. Sure, it sounds scary, but the Guardian finds the Gaylord and whoops his ass with ease. The Guardian then takes the Gaylord's head to the Awoken Queen. Turns out the hideous eye of the Gaylord acts as a key to enter the garden. The Gaylord clearly should have kept a normal key, would have been much harder to get. After learning that the Guardian is on Mars, the Guardian arrives on the planet's lost city of Freehold. There's one little hiccup. After the collapse, the city has been occupied by the Cabal, a race of rhino-like humanoid beings. Anyway, the Guardian fights off several monsters and finally arrives inside the Black Garden. Inside of it, the Vex creatures are worshipping the Black Heart, which is basically a replica of the darkness. That's a crazy dance move. Alright, our Guardian begins to shoot all the Vex guys, eventually kills the Black Heart because anything is possible when you have plot armor. The Dark Below expansion begins with a hive acting up to resurrect Crota. Then we meet Eris Morn, a former hunter who lost her light and her world fighting Crota. Eris sends the Guardian to take out Sardon, Crota's right-hand man. Apparently, after the collapse, Sardon took the moon and built it up as a hive's base of operations. Eris tells the Guardian that Sardon needs to be eliminated before he can summon Crota's soul. So, deep inside the moon's tunnel system, the Guardian finds and kills Sardon, but this doesn't mean the hive will stop trying to bring their god back. Surprisingly, the rest of the hive weirdos have already begun preparations to restore Crota's soul. Being the Chad that they are, the Guardian reaches the temple on the moon and destroys the crystal that contains Crota's soul. House of Wolves expansion introduces us to an awoken warrior called Petra Venge, who is an ally of the Vanguard. Right after meeting the Guardian, Petra asks them to stop Skolas, an ex-prisoner of the Awoken. Skolas is the leader of the Wolves and is from the fallen alien race. Apparently, Skolas wants to unite all the scattered fallen factions into one massive army. You can say that the dude is a serious god complex. To make things even worse, Skolas is also searching for something related to the Vex. Upon reaching Venus, the Guardian puts on his Sherlock hat to find out exactly what the hell Skolas is planning. Turns out, the Fallen are trying to take over oracles, sentient Vex machinery capable of calculating and creating realities. Whoa. Machines capable of time manipulation? Then, our Guardian does what they do best, kill some Fallen and destroy the oracles. After making sure Skolas' plan fails, the Guardian wants to kill him, but Mara wants Skolas alive, which doesn't sound like a nice idea, but hey, can't argue with the damn queen. There's one problem though. Skolas has gotten his hands on Vex tech that allows him to move the Fallen warriors through space and time. With a bit of a struggle, the Guardian manages to tear through the Fallen warriors and captures Skolas for Mara.
Petra, bring Skolas to me.
The Taken King expansion begins with Oryx, the Taken King and Crota's father, entering the solar system like a bloody Sith Lord. Oryx is here with his fleet of big-ass ships, which dominates the Awoken fleet. Mara Sov launches a big energy attack at Oryx's fleet, which destroys smaller ships, but does nothing to the Dreadnought, Oryx's main ship. To return the favor, Oryx launches an attack so massive that it destroys the entire Awoken fleet. The attack from the Dreadnought was so powerful that it created a hole in Saturn's rings.
Guide them, my hidden friend. It is all up to you now.
Wow, this guy's no joke. Moving on, Zavala sends the Guardian to Phobos, one of Mars's moons, to check out what the hell is wrong with the Cabal. On the moon, the Cabal troops are running away from a new enemy, the Taken. These Taken are beings of different species corrupted by the darkness. Space zombies with the power of darkness, basically. And guess who controls these Taken? Yeah, it's Oryx. Anyway, seeing that these Taken are something else entirely, the Guardian skedaddles out of there on Zavala's orders. Hey, I would too. Back at the Vanguard HQ, Zavala, Ikora, and Cade are trying to figure out the enemy and how the Awoken got wiped out in just one attack. Cade tells the Guardian that they need a stealth drive to board the Dreadnought and sends them off to get it. After getting the stealth drive, our Guardian makes his way to Saturn's rings, where the Dreadnought is parked like a Porsche. Pure drama erupts when the stealth drive malfunctions just as the Guardian is about to enter the big-ass ship. The Taken sees the Guardian, tries blasting them off, but, plot armor. The Guardian teleports on Oryx's ship just in the nick of time. However, their spaceship is reduced to atoms. Inside the Dreadnought, the Guardian tries to locate Oryx. However, after further inspection, the Guardian learns that Oryx is in another realm that could be accessed through something called the Rupture, which is a sort of portal to the Ascendant realm. It's a parallel dimension that only opens for a hive on the Ascendant rank, so the Guardian has no chance of getting anywhere near Oryx. The brilliant Vanguard commanders tell the Guardian that they need a piece of crystal that once held Crota's soul. The Guardian can use the crystal to open the gate to the Ascendant Realm. Sounds easy enough. Of course, the Guardian gets the crystal after dropping some bodies. Back inside the Dreadnought, our Guardian is ready to finally take on Oryx and spank his butt back to where he came from. After jumping into the Ascendant Realm, the Guardian manages to kill Oryx's physical body to the point where he converts himself into a Taken just to save his soul. Rise of Iron expansion begins with the introduction of Iron Lords, who were the first group of Earth's protectors after the collapse. They fought to make sure humanity not only survived the collapse, but also rebuilt civilization. As humanity's protectors, they made the last city and brought peace to the lawless land. As with all good things, the age of the Iron Lords didn't last long. Back to the present, the House of Devils, a fallen faction, is looking for tech from the Golden Age. One of the remaining Iron Lords, Saladin, is looking into the matter and wants the Guardian to go to find some sort of Iron Temple. The Guardian heads there to make sure the place remains safe from the Fallen. On the mountain, the Guardian learns that the Fallen are trying to break into the Iron Temple to get to Siva. Interestingly, Siva is an advanced self-replicating nanotech capable of building and repairing cities on its own. Unfortunately, the Fallen want to use this nanotech to modify their bodies and transcend to something far worse. Oh my god, why? But the real problem is that Siva is unpredictable and could be deadly in the wrong hands. Inside the Iron Temple, Saladin explains that the Iron Lords wanted to use Siva to get humanity to new heights, but Rasputin controlled and used Siva on the Iron Lords instead. The AI killed the Iron Lords as it wanted to protect humanity on its own terms. Jealousy? Really? Anyway, Jolder, another Iron Lord who's now dead, sacrificed herself to seal Siva deep inside a chamber under the Cosmodrome. So yeah, using Siva can be really dangerous, especially if Hive are the users because they're crazy. Regardless, without wasting any time, the Guardian leaves to take care of this Siva problem once and for all. There, our Guardian fights with the remnants of Fellwinter, the remains of a Dread Iron Lord brought back to life by Siva. After the boss fight, our Guardian doesn't think too much and blows up the whole chamber to finally destroy Siva. Destiny 2 straight away takes us to the last city, where Cade, Zavala, and Ikora learn that something has damaged the Skyline defense system, so these folks are pretty worried. Turns out they're right to be worried because in the next moment, a series of ships start attacking and destroys the Vanguard HQ. Moving on, the Guardian arrives in the last city with their ghost. Guardian is shocked to see the entire city destroyed by the enemies. Also, one of the enemy ships has attached itself to the Traveler. Yeah, that's unhealthy attachment. The Guardian starts looking for survivors at the Vanguard HQ, and we learn that it was Cabal who attacked the last city. After shooting down a bunch of Cabals like a freaking badass, the Guardian runs into Cade, who in turn runs off to find the enemy's leader. Next, the Guardian sees the enemy's command ship, which is really massive. Right then, the Guardian sees Ikora laying waste to an enemy ship. Zavala now communicates with the Guardian and sends over Amanda, a human pilot, to pick them up. As promised, Amanda picks up the Guardian and leaves them on the enemy command ship. After walking inside the ship for a little bit, the Guardian sees Gaul, the leader of the bad guys. He's a massive creature with the voice of Kratos from God of War. As Gaul introduces himself, the enemy ship on the Traveler takes away the light from the Lightbearers and also deactivates the ghost. Gaul starts beating the crap out of the Guardian, who's too weak without the light. During the beatdown, the ghost falls off the ship, and the Gaul seals the deal by kicking the Guardian off of the ship as well. After being embarrassed by the Gaul, the Guardian wakes up in the last city. Without the light, the Guardian walks like they're in their 80s. Fortunately though, they find the ghost, who just had enough spark remaining to heal the Guardian. However, Ghost confirms that the light is gone. Without it, the ghost can't resurrect the Guardian if they die. It's simple, just don't die then. After strolling around for a while and seeing all the dead Guardians, the Guardian and Ghost meet Hawthorne, a human sniper who's there with her pet eagle Lewis, and a group of other human survivors. Elsewhere, we see Gaul talking to his most loyal follower and mentor, the Consul, who for some reason doesn't wear a mask to hide that ugly face. Anyway, Gaul and Consul talk about using the Traveler's power for themselves, but first they must learn more about the Traveler. For that, Gaul has captured the Speaker, the representative of the Traveler. Meanwhile, the Guardian heads for the Shard of the Traveler, which is exactly what it sounds like. Over the years, the power of the Traveler's Shard has been manipulated. It's not something to poke around in. However, the Guardian wants to get near the Shard because, well, there's nothing else to do. The Guardian travels near the Shard, which is also called the Dead Zone. Of course, there are some enemies to kill and hoops to jump through, but eventually the Ghost and the Guardian use the Shard to get back to the Traveler's light and regain their power.
Do you feel it? The light is back. We're back.
We're back, baby. The Guardian strolls around for a little bit. With the help of Hawthorne, they manage to read a broadcast message from Zavala. Yeah, that dude is alive, so the Guardian and the Ghost want to find Zavala and retake the city. However, Hawthorne doesn't like this one bit. A lot of refugees from the city are pouring in, and Hawthorne wants the Guardian's help to keep them safe. Well, she's in wrong. Regardless, the Guardian still decides to head out and find Zavala, which simply pisses off Hawthorne. Meanwhile, Gaul is talking to the speaker and trying to learn more about the Traveler. Gaul confirms that a Guardian has reconnected with Light, but he doesn't care about this. Instead, he wants to know how in the hell to get the Traveler to choose him for the Light. Apparently, Gaul has blocked the Traveler's light, but he's yet to learn to use it himself. Yeah, that's not happening, dude. The Guardian now arrives on a destroyed vanguard station where they meet Zavala and the deputy commander, Sloan. Both Zavala and Sloan are surprised that the Guardian has got their light back, but the Guardian is the only hope to fight back. So Zavala asks the Guardian to restore the power to the station. And well, after shooting through several ugly enemies, the Guardian gets the station running like a bloody champ. Now, while the Guardian moves ahead to get things running for the Vanguard, Sloan tells them about Gaul's spacecraft, the Almighty, which has the power to destroy stars. Gaul has used the Almighty to destroy several stars and planets, and now it's pointed at Earth's sun. So yeah, things aren't looking good for humanity right now. However, good old Zavala isn't ready to give up. He wants to destroy this so-called Almighty that's threatening the sun. But first, Zavala wants to find Cade and Ikora. Yeah, get the team together, man. Right away, the Guardian's ghost traces the signal from Cade's ghost, which is coming from Nessus, which is basically a big rock in the solar system. The Guardian heads to Nessus to find the loudmouth Kane. As soon as the Guardian arrives at Nessus, they learn that Cade is stuck in some sort of teleportation loop.
Hey! Over here! Get me out of here!
Dude, you're in some real pickle, aren't you? The Guardian must find the teleportation portal's power source and hit the stop button. However, that ain't going to be a walk in the park, because this place is flooded with a lot of enemies. It takes a while, but the Guardian eventually destroys the portal's source that frees Cade. Cade, being the knucklehead that he is, wants to fight Gaul straight away like it's that easy. But the Guardian convinces him to hold his horses and help them find Ikora first. Thanks to Cade's information, the Guardian tracks Ikora to Ao, some sort of holy site that was touched by the Traveler. Ikora tells the Guardian that this very place is being swarmed by Gaul's forces because they want to steal the remaining light of the Traveler. So the Guardian must stop these fodder-level minions, and well, they do just that by blasting through several enemies like it's just another Tuesday. While the Guardian keeps on killing Gaul's minions and disrupting the enemy's communication network, Gaul talks to the speaker. Apparently, Gaul wants to know what makes the Guardians worthy of the Traveler's light, to which the speaker says devotion, sacrifice, and death.
So, feel free to kill yourself.
Man, that's some next level trash talking. Shockingly, Gaul wants the Traveler to choose him as his Guardian rather than stealing its light. In fact, Consul confirms that they have everything ready to extract Traveler's light, but Gaul wants to get the light the right way. Okay, this dude has honor? Meanwhile, Zavala, Ikora, the Guardian, Cade, and Hawthorne have a meeting, where they discuss a plan to stop the Almighty from destroying the sun. Ikora tells everybody that destroying the Almighty might send the sun into a supernova. They don't want that, so they must disable the Almighty's weapon, but to do that, they must somehow enter the last city. Once they're inside, they have to get the Guardian inside the Almighty, because they're the only ones with light. Alright, good plan. Now, the Guardian gets inside an enemy base to steal one of their ships, which will help them to get on the Almighty without getting detected. Obviously, the Guardian had to kill a bunch of enemies, but they eventually got their hands on the ship. While the Guardian flies away towards the Almighty, Cade and the rest of the gang head towards the last city to prepare the counterattack. However, Zavala's forces can't attack until the Guardian disables the Almighty, which you can see is one massive ship. After stepping on the Almighty, the Guardian throws a fusion cell into the ship's core to, well, destroy the weapon. Works like magic, so goodbye Almighty. At the same time, the Guardian lets Zavala know that they can now start attacking Gaul's forces. Without wasting a moment, Zavala and the rest launch a counterattack on Gaul's troops. And despite the fact that these guys no longer have the light, they do a pretty good job at blasting away some big-ass enemies. Meanwhile, Consul tells Gaul that Zaval's forces have entered the city, and the Guardian has already laid waste to the Almighty. Consul's pissed at Gaul for sitting on his ass and waiting around for the Traveler to choose him when he can already steal the light from the Traveler. In that frustration, Consul kills the speaker and orders Gaul to be a good villain. However, Gaul is bigger and scarier, and he doesn't like being ordered around by somebody who doesn't even wear a mask. So, Gaul chokes Consul, his mentor, to death.
I am Gaul, and I will take the light.
Zavala, Cade, and Ikora get gravely injured while fighting Gaul's forces. Oh, and by the way, Gaul has completely lost it at this point. It's this close to stealing all the Traveler's light. Fortunately, the Guardian arrives right on time. Use a portal to arrive on Gaul's command ship, the closest thing to the Traveler. Unfortunately though, Gaul has already absorbed a lot of Traveler's light, so he has become even stronger. Of course, the Guardian tries their best against Gaul, but the big scary dude continues to absorb more light in the middle of the fight. Well, that's just cheating. Eventually, the Guardian defeats Gaul in a direct fight, and right when the Guardian thinks it's time to get a sandwich, Gaul transforms into his immortal light form. The dude gets really massive and challenges the Traveler head on, but then the Traveler breaks Gaul's chains and shatters Gaul's immortal form into bits. All that build-up for that? Now Gaul is gone, and the Traveler is back to its original glory. Also, everybody's gotten their light back, so good job, Guardian. Curse of Osiris shows us that every other planet is getting jealous of humanity, especially now that the Traveler has awakened. So while humanity and the Guardians are having a time of their lives, something scary is happening on Mercury. We meet Osiris, the Guardian who's exiled from the last city, and his ghost, Sagira. These two fight off some enemies, and during all that mess, Osiris sends Sagira through the portal before getting captured by some scary robots. Sadly though, Sagira gets shot by crazy-ass robots right before it enters the portal. Fortunately, Ikora gets her hands on the injured Sagira and asks the Guardian to head to Mercury and find out what the hell is happening. Apparently, Osiris was Ikora's mentor and one of the most powerful Guardians, so Ikora wants to know what happened to the guy. After arriving on Mercury, the Guardian learns that Osiris was studying the Vex for years. Shockingly, the Vex have created a simulation engine called the Infinite Forest on Mercury. Sagira explains that this wretched Infinite Forest allows the Vex to simulate countless timelines and possible futures. And using this tech, Vex is trying to find the timeline that is best for its species, but for other species, not so much. Also, our boy Osiris is actually trapped inside the Infinite Forest. What's worse is that a Vex mind called Panoptes is controlling the Infinite Forest. Trying to find a future where there's no light. Once Panoptes creates such a reality, it will dominate the entire universe. Yeah, we don't want that. What's worse is that since Panoptes can analyze and adjust simulations, it's really difficult to defeat him inside the Infinite Forest. But of course, the Guardian never gives up so easily, so they enter the Infinite Forest to find Osiris. They travel through several versions of Mercury's past, present, and future, and eventually find a reflection of Osiris deep inside the simulation. After that, Osiris and the Guardian team up against Panoptes before it can lock the Vex in that crazy timeline. Of course, it's a tough fight, but eventually the Guardian defeats Panoptes and destroys the scary timeline that threatened, well, everything. Eat dust, crusty ancient species. Once that's done, Ikora offers Osiris to join the last city, but Osiris decides to stay on Mercury to uncover other dangers of the Infinite Forest. The Warmind expansion takes us to Mars, where we meet Anna Bray, a Guardian and a member of House Bray. For background, House Bray was a famous family from the Golden Age, and they helped create the powerful AI weapon we all know as Rasputin. After becoming a Guardian, Anna sort of forgot her connection to the Bray family, but Anna always knew that she was somehow connected to Rasputin. Sadly though, Rasputin is considered a dangerous weapon that has been sitting dormant on Mars for years. And after the Traveler's awakening, Rasputin is starting to become active again. To make things worse, the Hive has started to arrive on Mars like it's a freaking planet-scale concert, so the Vanguard asks the Guardian to figure out what the hell is up with Hive, Rasputin, and, of course, Anna. After arriving on Mars, the Guardian meets up with Anna, who tells them she has some sort of connection with Rasputin. Also, Hive wants to use Rasputin's powers, and the stupid aliens have released Pol, a powerful worm god who is imprisoned beneath Mars' surface. Savala also arrives on Mars because he's concerned about Rasputin, but Anna makes him realize that Pol is a much bigger threat. Also, Anna convinces Savala that they can use Rasputin's defense network to fight a freaking worm god. And hey, since Anna is connected to the House Bray, she can actually activate Rasputin completely. And, well, Anna was bloody spot on, because Rasputin actually helps the Guardian by activating its Golden Age weapon called the Valkyrie. Anyway, Pol is a freaking god, so it's a tough fight. However, thanks to Rasputin, the Guardian somehow manages to defeat Pol.
I can't believe it. You did it! You took down a worm god!
Of course they defeated a worm god. You're talking to a Guardian here, lady. Once the battle is over, Savala the Guardian and Anna talk to Rasputin, who's actually far more independent than any other AI. Suck it, ChatGPT. Instead of destroying anything, Rasputin wants to become a protector of the solar system, including humanity, but the AI refuses to become anybody's servant. Good for you, AI. Good for you. Destiny 2 Forsaken kicks off with Cade getting all beaten up by Uldren. Yeah, that's the long-lost prince of the Awoken and Mara's brother. Cade tries to act funny and all, but Uldren eventually kills the guy without thinking twice. Kind of a crazy way to start this off. Now, we go back a few hours to the prison of elders somewhere on the reef. There, Petra Venge has called Cade and the Guardian to handle a prison break situation. Cade acts like a damn Giga Chad and brings the prison system back online, but some ugly monsters have already broken out of their cells. Obviously, Cade tries to fight them off, but there were a lot of enemies and they overwhelm Cade. Then, one sick bastard shoots Cade's ghost, killing it right then and there. Then, we all know how it all turned out for our boy Cade. Right after Uldren, who's leading this prison break, shoots Cade, the Guardian finds his fellow vanguard taking his last breaths. The Guardian tries to help Cade, but the poor guy dies anyway.
I ever lost.
Nah, man, don't leave us like that. Moving on, Savala and Ikora look at Cade's dead body, and Ikora is ready to take Uldren's head for what he's done. However, Savala wants to focus on their home and the Traveler instead of going on a suicide mission. Savala doesn't want to lose any more soldiers. But hey, the Guardian's pissed as well. They head out to beat the crap out of Uldren on their own. Meanwhile, we see Uldren ordering his awoken army to capture Tangled Shore, which is currently under the control of the Fallen. Uldren also mentions his dead sister Mara, who shockingly disappeared during the Taken War. But for some reason, Uldren is hearing Mara's voice, who's asking Uldren to free her from somewhere. Next, the Guardian arrives on Tangled Shore to look for Uldren, where the Guardian sees that the Fallen are fighting against themselves. Right then, Petra communicates with the Guardian and tells them that Uldren has mutated some dead Fallen, and they're now called the Barons. Naturally, these wretches are now fighting for Uldren, which doesn't land well with Spider, powerful fallen crime lord. So in an interesting turn of events, Spider agrees to help the Guardian and Petra by telling the exact location of Uldren and his barons. Yeah, this scumbag will definitely backstab the Guardian. The Guardian now moves ahead and learns that Fikrul, the fanatic, is the leader of the ruthless Baron army. So, yeah, the Guardian has to kill this scumbag before getting his hands on Uldren. Now we get introduced to the rest of the powerful barons: Alikris, the machinist, Hyrax, the mindbender, Araskes, the trickster, Rexus Fawn, the hangman, Kanek, the mad bomber, Pura, the rifleman, and Yavix, the rider. Okay, that's a lot of enemies. Regardless, the Guardian isn't scared one bit by this band of uglies, and the first enemy the Guardian hunts down is the Rider. The Guardian kills this dude while riding a motorbike, so you can say the Rider lost his ride pretty quickly. Once that's done, the Guardian finds the Trickster, a coward who likes to hide behind traps and explosives. Of course, it takes a while for the Guardian to find her, but they eventually do, and send her to the afterlife. Just like that, the Guardian hunts down 6 out of the 8 damn Barons without breaking a sweat. While the Guardian is hunting down the Barons, Uldren arrives in some sort of desolated place to get a big shiny crystal. I wonder what that is. Anyway, Uldren gets here after following Mara's instructions, and he believes this crystal is the key to freeing Mara, though I highly doubt it. Surprisingly, Petra has been following Uldren, and she almost shoots Uldren in the back. Sadly though, Mara tells Uldren to move away at the last moment.
Move.
Damn. Meanwhile, the Guardian goes against the 7th Baron, the Machinist. Sure, it was a slightly tougher fight, but the Guardian defeats the Machinist without too much trouble. Now it's time for our hero to go against the Fanatic and then make a move against the biggest baddie, Uldren. Before the Guardian can move ahead, Petra contacts him and says that Uldren has arrived at some sort of watchtower. Petra also reveals that Uldren has always been an asshole, but not evil. However, Mara's voice and visions have changed Uldren, but is it really her? Meanwhile, Uldren has opened some sort of portal. He orders the Fanatics to avenge the other Barons while he gets inside the portal using that crystal. Man, this portal seems like pretty bad news, huh? As soon as Uldren enters the portal, the Guardian arrives at the watchtower, where the Fanatic is waiting for them. The Guardian has easily dusted all the other Barons, so naturally, they defeat the Fanatic by putting a hell of a lot of bullets inside of him. Meanwhile, we learn that Mara has been asking Uldren to free her from the Dreaming City, which is basically a mysterious awoken homeland. Uldren does what Mara asks, but then a creature known as the Voice of Riven comes out of Dreaming City instead of Mara. Turns out it was Riven, a former Awoken, who was manipulating Uldren all this time, and the ugly monster Voice of Riven is the physical manifestation of Riven. Damn! Right after getting out of the Dreaming City, the Voice of Riven eats Uldren like he's a bloody snack. Fortunately, the Guardian arrives right on time to fight Voice of Riven, even though the enemy is quite powerful and ugly. The Guardian defeats it after a long, tiring battle. Also, Uldren wasn't fully digested by the Voice of Riven, so the Guardian and Petra confront Uldren for killing Cade. Naturally, Uldren feels guilty for being such an idiot, so he accepts his fate. And finally, Petra shoots the guy dead to avenge the mighty and sarcastic warrior Cade. Seriously? You're really gonna kill off a major enemy? Off-screen? Destiny 2 Shadowkeep expansion kicks off with Eris arriving on the moon to check on some weird activity. The weird turns scary when Eris discovers some sort of ghostly shadow beneath the moon's surface. Naturally, Savala orders the Guardian to find out what the hell is happening on our good old moon, which, by the way, is being swarmed by the Hive. While the Guardian shoots through Hive monsters, Ikora tells them that Eris might have triggered something on the moon, so naturally the Guardian must find Eris if she's still alive. Ikora also says that Eris sensed an ancient power on the moon that could threaten humanity. So Eris went there to see what's up, but she clearly landed in some sort of trouble. Anyway, the Guardian keeps on moving forward, and after a while they see a goddamn pyramid under the moon's surface. What the hell? Fortunately, the Guardian finds Eris near the pyramid. She reveals that this pyramid is connected to the darkness. Yeah, the same darkness that fought against the Traveler. Apparently, after the pyramid was activated, it unleashed some darkness monsters known as the Nightmares. Shockingly, these nightmares take the shape and form of enemies the Guardian or anyone else has fought and killed before. So the Guardian must find a way inside the pyramid to truly handle this cosmic mess. Well, that's just great. However, before all of that, the Guardian must stop Scarlet Keep, a massive fortress built by Hive. Apparently, the Hive wizards, known as Daughters of Crota, want to use the pyramid's power for themselves. And of course, the Guardian can't let that happen. So they climb the Shadowkeep and find one of the Crota's daughters, Hashladun. Of course, Hashladun seems scary as hell, but expectedly, the Guardian defeats the baddie wizard pretty easily. At this point, the Guardian learns that Hive is using Cryptoglyph, a relic to command the nightmares. So, well, the Guardian does their thing and gets the relic by blasting through a bunch of enemies like a boss. Now the Guardian enters the pyramid after defeating several nightmares, and inside, they see a vision. In this vision, the darkness takes the form of the Guardians themselves, and the darkness tells the Guardians that they are humanity's salvation. However, the darkness doesn't fight the Guardian, who escapes the pyramid with some sort of communication device. After returning, Ikora and Zavala conclude that by communicating with the Guardian, the darkness is announcing its return. Ah, man. Destiny 2, Beyond Light expansion, kicks off with Zavala announcing that, for some reason, Lo, Mars, Mercury, and Saturn's moon, Titan, have disappeared. So of course, something weird is happening in the galaxy right now, and the Guardians plan to fix it. Next, we arrive on the icy moon of Europa, where Varix, a fallen ally of the Vanguard, sends a distress signal to Earth. Apparently, Varix is scared of someone else who's ready to march against humanity. That's not good. Naturally, the Guardian arrives on Europa to find if there's anything scarier at this place other than freezing cold. Meanwhile, we see that Varix has been captured by Aramis, a fallen leader who wants to use the Stasis to destroy the Traveler and humanity. Shockingly, Stasis is a relic connected with the Darkness Pyramid and has the power to destroy Traveler's light. But there's one problem. Varix stole something from the bad lady and, well, lost it. So naturally, Aramis is pissed at Varix and orders her minions to kill the dude. Fortunately, though, the Guardian arrives on time to save Varix from the enemies. Varix tells the Guardian that Aramis has extracted darkness from the Stasis and she must be stopped at all costs. After a while, the Guardian arrives in Aramis's hideout, where they see that Aramis has started to share the power of stasis with her minions. The Guardian tries to fight off these overpowered minions, but they flee the scene after getting overrun. Okay, this darkness is indeed scary. Meanwhile, Exo Stranger arrives along with Eris and the Drifter, another Guardian to meet our protagonist. The mysterious Exo Stranger is a member of the House Bray, and she travels to the alternate timelines to prevent darkness from taking control anywhere. The Exo Stranger tells the Guardian that the floodgates to darkness are opening everywhere, and she intends to stop it. Anyway, after learning about all this mess, the Guardian decides to get some of the darkness from the floodgates. You may wonder why. Well, this time, the Guardian needs darkness to fight darkness, and they are strong enough to push away the darkness's temptation. Moving on, the Guardian uses the darkness inside of him to fight off Aramis's strongest soldier, Phalanx. Of course, Phalanx has the darkness as well, so fighting her won't be a walk in the park. And initially, the Guardian struggles a bit against Phalanx, but they eventually defeat her. Once that's done, the Guardian continues to absorb more darkness so they can get strong enough to fight Aramis. However, Varix tells the Guardian that they must first target Praxis, the Fallen who created the darkness extracting device for Aramis. Yeah, get him first then. Expectedly, the Guardian wastes no time and finds the jerk Praxis, who is definitely a tough cookie. But thanks to the plot armor, the Guardian is able to overpower the evil Fallen and defeat him. I guess getting all that darkness was worth it, huh? At the same time, Aramis is pissed after learning that two of her strongest minions are dead. However, she still has Atrax and Critis, so Aramis has no plans on slowing down, even though Critis doesn't like this one bit. Moving on, Aramis starts opening a Vex portal in Europa so the entire place gets overrun by Vex. Even though Vex will also kill several of her own people, Aramis is ready to pay that price. The Guardian chases down Aramis to stop her, but they're too late, because the portal is now open. A bunch of enemies come out of the portal, and the Guardian defeats them. However, Aramis flees the scene in the middle of all the chaos. Right after that, we see that Aramis and her people once worshipped the Traveler, but one day, the Traveler abandoned her planet. Naturally, Aramis felt betrayed, and now she wants to destroy the Traveler and every one of its followers. At this point, the Guardian has consumed way too much darkness, so much that even Ghost fails to recognize the Guardian. However, it means the Guardian is ready to take on Aramis, so they head out to find the final boss. The Guardian tracks down Aramis, who tries to trap our hero in some sort of darkness crystal. For a while, it seems like the Guardian has lost, but right then, the Guardian focuses on the light inside of them. Right then, they break free of the crystals and charge at Aramis, who just can't seem to shut up. The Guardian shoots a lot of bullets at Aramis, and eventually, they use the darkness to trap Aramis in the same damn crystal. The Guardian just pulled the Uno reverse card on Aramis. After defeating Aramis, the Guardian talks to the Exo Stranger, who tells them that in many timelines, the Guardians left the light for darkness. However, the Guardian, our Guardian, now controls both light and darkness, which is pretty impressive. Duh. They are the protagonist, you know? Destiny 2, the Witch Queen expansion kicks off with the reappearance of Mars, and the planet is not in a good state. Of course, Ikora arrives on Mars to see what the hell is up. Turns out, Eris is already on the planet. Right then, a flight of the Cabal ships arrives on Mars. Ikora thinks that the Cabal are here to attack the surface, but no, they're here for something else. Apparently, a big-ass ship called Savathun, a hive god, aka the Witch Queen, is also here. And the Cabal is getting ready to strike Savathun with their massive cannon. Of course, our very own Guardian arrives, and Ikora asks them to find Savathun on her ship. Well, the Guardian jumps onto Savathun's ship in no time and takes down several ugly mugs. After that, the Guardian runs into one of Savathun's knights, but there's something strange. Shocking, this knight has its very own ghost. What the hell? Somehow, the Guardian is able to defeat the knight and destroy its ghost. After that, Savathun reveals herself. However, the Witch Queen is too damn strong for the Guardian, so she blasts the Guardian off the ship. After returning to Mars, the Guardian tells Ikora that a Hive Knight had a ghost, like any other Lightbearer. So yeah, Ikora also starts scratching her head in confusion. After a while, Ikora concludes that Savathun might have stolen the Traveler's light. It's the only logical explanation. After this, we see a not-so-cute backstory of Savathun. Apparently, Savathun made a pact with the ancient worm gods, who gave her immense power. This gave birth to the hives, but to maintain this power, the hive must offer constant blood tribute to the worm gods, so the hive started to hunt down several civilizations. However, Savathun and Hive had great trouble defeating the Guardians, so she somehow stole the light, the very thing that makes Guardians strong. Gosh, Savathun is really something, ain't she? There's no time to talk around. So the Guardian arrives in Savathun's throne world to find out exactly how she stole the light. During their search, the Guardian learns from a wandering Hive ghost named Finch that some ghosts gave into Hive to find a purpose. You could say there weren't any human light bearers for them, so these ghosts gave into peer pressure. Okay. The Hive ghost then directs the Guardian towards a Hive temple, which holds Savathun's secrets. On their way, the Guardian learns that Savathun somehow got hold of Osiris's ghost, Sagira. That must be Savathun's plan to steal the light. However, the Guardian acts quickly and grabs Sagira from Savathun's temple, and Ikora tells the Guardian to bring Sagira to her. But as soon as the Guardian picks up Sagira, they hear a voice that mentions someone called the Witness. So now, Ikora tells the Guardian to find out the identity of this witness. Ikora also asks the Guardian to head back to Europa and gather the darkness from the pyramid with the help of Eris. Oh god, back to darkness again? Ikora believes that only darkness can help the Guardian to reveal the memory from Sagira's shell. So, well, the Guardian does what they gotta do and gathers the bloody darkness. Then they take Sagira's shell back to Savathun's throne room. In the throne room, the Guardian unlocks Sagira's memory and hears the words from Savathun herself. Apparently, Savathun has learned secrets about the light through Vanguard archives, something that can destroy everybody. Yeah, that does not sound good. Also, Savathun learned those secrets from Ikora. How? Well, Savathun impersonated Osiris to learn that secret from Ikora, who was Osiris' friend. Some next-level deception. Regardless, this trick worked well for Savathun, as she used that knowledge to steal the light. Moving on, Finch now tells the Guardian to visit the Temple of Oryx, who is Savathun's brother, so the Guardian heads there to find some more answers. Well, that was a good strategy, because in Oryx's temple, the Guardian finds a tablet that Oryx used to create Taken. Now the Guardian uses this same tablet to unlock another one of Savathun's memories. The Guardian learns that Savathun is planning to pull the Traveler into the throne room and then seal it away. Jesus, just leave the Traveler alone for God's sake. Also, Savathun is apparently preparing for the Witness's return, who originated in the first civilization uplifted by the Traveler. After the Traveler abandoned the world of Witness, the entire civilization chose darkness. Not only that, but the entire civilization used the darkness to merge into one being who is, of course, the Witness. Jeez. Anyway, there's no time to waste, so the Guardian heads out to find Savathun's right hand. Of course, it takes a while, but the Guardian eventually finds Savathun's right hand and defeats him. The Guardian now grabs a crystal that was being guarded by the enemy, which can be used to unlock another memory of Savathun. In this memory, the Guardian sees that Savathun arrived before the Traveler and was severely injured. She gave an emotional speech before dying, and then the Traveler actually chose Savathun like any other Lightbearer. What? That's right, it was actually the Traveler who deliberately chose Savathun for the light. This also means that Savathun didn't steal light by using the secret she learned from Ikora. Of course, that's a lot to process, and before the Guardian can understand everything, Savathun arrives in front of them. Basically, Savathun forgot all about this after getting resurrected by the Traveler, and she used the Guardian to unlock these forgotten memories. The Guardian can't fight Savathun right now, she's just too damn strong, so the Guardian escapes the place. Now the Guardian tells all this to Zavala, who just fails to understand why in the hell the Traveler resurrected one of humanity's worst enemies. In that moment, Zavala starts to question if the Traveler is actually, well, good. However, Ikora tells Zavala and the Guardian to stop asking stupid questions. That's because they have no choice but to save the Traveler from being sealed away by Savathun, or else humanity is doomed. At this point, Ikora and the Guardian also learn that Darkness lied to Hive that the Traveler is coming to destroy them, so the Hive, including Savathun, had no choice but to choose Darkness. After all that discussion, the Guardian arrives in Savathun's throne room. Shockingly, Savathun has already started to pull the Traveler in using a ritual she learned from the Witness. So the Guardian starts to fight Savathun, and they try to tell her that the Hive was lied to by the Darkness. However, Savathun refuses to believe anything, so naturally, the Guardian continues to fight, and they eventually defeat the Witch Queen. However, Savathun's ghost escapes right after she dies. Of course, everybody's happy that the Traveler is saved, but the fight isn't over, because the scary as hell Witness is all set to return.
Do not be afraid. Your pale heart holds the key.
Dude has a smoky pyramid for a head, whoa. Destiny 2 Lightfall expansion starts off by telling us about the Witness's return. This Witness wields the power of darkness, which has tried to manipulate Guardians before. In fact, this very darkness used Savathun like a damn puppet. Turns out, long before her death, Savathun rebelled against the Witness once. Alright, that's interesting. Not only that, but Savathun hid the only way to defeat the Witness on planet Neptune. But now, the Witness arrived in the galaxy with Callus, the former Cabal Emperor, and they're heading towards Earth. However, the Guardians and almost every other good species have united against the Witness. Interestingly, the Traveler itself has left Earth to fight the darkness in outer space. During this fight, the Traveler unleashes a powerful beam of light towards the enemy ships. However, the Witness easily overwhelms the Traveler with his immense power. On top of that, this smoky-headed villain also sort of shuts down the ghosts and the power on Vanguard ships. Right after that, the Witness finds the Veil, which is some sort of bridge between light and darkness. The Witness orders Callus to go after the Veil on Neptune. At the same time, Osiris also heads out to get the Veil before the enemy. Naturally, Ikora asks the Guardian to follow and help good old Osiris. If you remember, the ghost of Osiris, Sagira, is sorta dead thanks to Savathun, so it's really important that Osiris doesn't die. So the Guardian grabs onto Osiris' ship as it flies away. That is some Tom Cruise level stunt work. Obviously, a fleet of Callus' ships is also heading towards Neptune, so Osiris and the Guardian hop on to one of the enemy's ships and destroy its engines. Once that's done, both of our heroes use the escape pods to land on Neptune, which, by the way, is home to an entire civilization of, wait for it, humans. In fact, Neptune has a large cyberpunk-like city called Neomuna, which looks really awesome. And it's a good name, I like it. Anyway, the Guardian tries to find Osiris, who's locked in his escape pod. Unfortunately, a bunch of Cabal soldiers find Osiris first, but just when Osiris thinks that he's dead for good, Nimbus and Rohan defeat the Cabals. These two very tall cybernetic soldiers are part of a line of warriors called Cloud Strikers. Meanwhile, the Witness tells Callus not to sit on his ass and find the Veil as soon as possible. After reuniting with Osiris, the Guardian learns all about Cloud Strikers. Once that's done, the Guardian heads out to find the Veil, but they're too late. The Cabal forces have surrounded the area that holds this Veil. In that moment, something weird happens with the Guardian's ghost, and through the ghost, the Guardian sees the meeting between the Witness and Callus. Apparently, the Witness wants Callus to destroy the Veil. That's not happening, dude. Now, the Guardian continues to find a way to free the Veil, but in the middle of all that, the Guardian also starts to feel something weird. Turns out, the Guardian has been experiencing strange connections to a new cosmic power known as Strand. Basically, Strand is a darkness-based extra-dimensional layer of psychic energy, which can be helpful in fighting Callus. However, the Guardian must first learn how to control this new strange power. Of course, the Strand is pretty risky business, but that doesn't scare our Guardian, so they head towards the Strand source. The Guardian now takes on the Strand energy and emits a green aura. The Guardian doesn't become Green Lantern or something. Instead, they start to move really fast and get a unique set of weapons. That's so freaking cool. The Guardian still has yet to fully control the power of the Strand, but Callus is moving ahead with his plan to destroy the Veil. So the Guardian hurries up and takes down several enemies with their new power, but they continue to get exhausted after using Strand. Meanwhile, Callus wants to destroy the Veil using Radial Mist, an artifact built by the Witness. The Guardian and Rohan track down Radial Mist, but the Guardian still isn't strong enough to destroy it. Obviously, there are sacrifices to be made to save the world, so Rohan puts on his hero cape and sacrifices himself to destroy the Radial Mist and secure the Veil. That's heroic, man. I want to see more of Rohan. Now, while the Guardian picks up Rohan's core, Callus tells the Witness that he sort of lost the Veil. Of course, the chimney-headed Witness is pissed, and again, he tells Callus to get bloody serious. While Callus continues to be a pain in the ass, the Guardian learns that Osiris can also feel the power of the Strand. Not only that, but Osiris has almost mastered this new power. So while Nimbus works on the city's defenses, Osiris teaches the Guardians more about the Strand and how to fully control it. Obviously, the Guardian gets better, but does he actually master the green aura? Well, you'll see. After completing the training, the Guardian heads out to take on Callus, and they're now strong enough to one-punch enemies like their Saitama. awesome. Just like that, the Guardian continues to be a badass and defeats several enemies. And eventually they find the Veil, which is freaking beautiful by the way, but as expected, the lazy-ass Callus is also at the location, getting all set to destroy the Veil for his smoky master. So the Guardian starts to fight Callus. And it for sure is not an easy fight. But thanks to the power of Strand, the Guardian defeats Callus after a pretty long battle. Obviously, the gang is all happy. But right then, the Witness somehow takes control of Guardian's ghost. Shockingly, the ghost creates a connection between the Veil and the Traveler, which was the Witness's plan from the very beginning. Fortunately, Nimbus saves the ghost, but the connection is already established. The Witness uses the Veil to open a portal on the Traveler and travel into another unknown dimension. That's not all. This entire thing puts Traveler into silent mode, so it's basically good for nothing right now. Basically, the Guardian's lost. You gotta be kidding me! Destiny 2, The Final Shape, begins with the Guardians explaining that the Witness hasn't returned after entering the portal on the Traveler. In fact, he's gone somewhere to create something called the Final Shape, which is clearly not a good thing. So the Guardians have tried to enter the portal themselves, but they failed. One day, one of the Guardians named Crow successfully entered the portal. Oh, by the way, this Crow guy is the resurrected version of Uldren. Yeah, the enemy Uldren. Apparently, a ghost revived the former villain after his death with the light. Uldren has opened a path for other Guardians to enter the portal and defeat the Smoky Witness dude. After bombarding us with those depressing details, Final Shape takes us back to the opening of Destiny 1, where the ghost revived our very own special Guardian. Okay. As of now, the Witness is getting close to creating the Final Shape, but the Traveler is still resisting. So, yeah, Vanguard still has time, so Zavala, the Guardian, and Ikora decide to enter the portal. As soon as these three enter it, the ship crash lands somewhere. But fortunately, the Guardian jumps out right in time. Instantly, the Guardian starts fighting some monster in this strange place on the Traveler, but after a while, a bright light pulls the Guardian towards it. Ooh, please don't die. Turns out it was the Traveler that pulled the Guardian inside of it. And my god, this realm inside of the Traveler is just beautiful. There's greenery everywhere, so you can say that the Traveler is an environmentalist. The ghost confirms that this realm is the heart of the Traveler, aka Pale Heart. Yeah, no, you can't call this place pale. Of course, there are fragments of darkness on the Pale Heart, so basically there's light and darkness in the same place, so the Guardian absorbs that harmonious power of light and darkness and powers up like a Giga Chad. After strolling in Traveler's Heart for a while, the Guardian runs into a familiar face, and this face is none other than Cade.
Well, I'll be damned.
Cade, how long has it been?
Man, I'm so happy that Destiny's Deadpool is back. Cade explains that he arrived in this place without light or a ghost. He wandered around for a bit, and after a while his killer Uldren, who now goes by the name Crow, arrived here as well. The two talked it out, and Crow went out to fight the Witness, who's doing something ugly to this utopian place. Now the Guardian looks for Crow, and they eventually find the dude. Turns out, Crow is being tortured with constant battering from the Witness, who wants Crow to abandon the light. But of course, Crow is pretty tough, and so far, he's only told the Witness to buzz off. Crow now reunites with Cade and the Guardian. However, there are more people to find, so the Guardian starts to track down Ikora's crashed ship. It's a pretty good call. Ikora left a message at the ship, confirming that she will try communicating with the Traveler at the cradle. The Guardian finds Ikora, who confirms she tried to talk to the Traveler but only heard its screams. Ikora tells the Guardian that the Witness is infecting the Traveler with darkness, so they must find a really good antibiotic. If they don't stop the Witness, he will use the Traveler's light to bring the outside world into utter silence. Basically, there'll be nothing left outside except for boring living statues. And this is what the Witness calls the Final Shape. Yeah, sure, that's a lot to process, but the Guardian doesn't like sitting on his ass, and there's still Zavala to find. So, the Guardian heads out again in search of the Vanguard's commander, and they do find him after fighting off some enemies. Shockingly, the Witness told Zavala that he would create a world where Zavala could reunite with his dead family, but the big blue man refused to offer. Now that the Destiny's Avengers team is back together, the Ghost realizes something. Interestingly, the Guardian has only felt stronger after arriving in Pale Heart. On top of that, the Traveler created a place in this realm that is exactly similar to where the Ghost revived the Guardian. So the Ghost thinks that the Guardian is chosen among chosen, so they must try talking to the Traveler. Fortunately, there are some cracks in this realm that are leaking light, so the Guardian tries their luck there. Well, the Guardian, Cade, and Crow find one such crack, but instead of talking to the Guardian, the Traveler pulls in Cade. Strange enough, Cade sees a vision with his ghost being a part of it, and the dude is happy. But right then, the Witness steps in and pulls Cade inside his vision, where Cade sees how his ghost was shot down by one of, well, Crow's minions. Sadly, Cade doesn't get any answers from the Traveler, just some riddles around devotion, sacrifice, and death, so Zavala, out of all people, starts to lose faith in the Traveler. And the big dude wants the Guardian to give in to the darkness to get some answers instead. Of course, the Guardian, and everyone said to Zavala, what the hell, dude? I mean, seriously. So Zavala leaves the camp without his ghost, and he himself wants to use the darkness to defeat the Witness. Zavala now enters a portal to meet the Witness and choose darkness. The Witness tells Zavala how his entire species became one using the darkness. And while the Witness continues to blabber, Zavala's ghost also enters the portal to trash talk the Witness. But the witness isn't up for comedy, so he kills the ghost in front of Zavala. Naturally, Zavala's pissed. But before he can do anything, the rest of the gang pulls him out of the portal. It's definitely sad that Zavala's ghost is gone, but the good thing is that Zavala has seen the witness's fortress, so he guides the Guardian into the fortress, which is one hell of a scary place. The witness arrives like a madman and starts to fight the Guardian. As expected, the Guardian has a tough time fighting the witness. However, the Traveler isn't against cheat codes, so he keeps on granting new weapons to the Guardian. With that, the Guardian is only able to injure the witness. What can you say? The witness is very powerful. So of course, the Guardian is left with no choice but to flee on his ship. At the same time, the witness unleashes his gigantic form and starts attacking Cade, Zavala, Ikora, and Crow. Fortunately though, no one dies, and they too escape the place on their ship. Dude, you're really telling me the Guardians lost? Yeah, the Guardians indeed lost that battle. But they haven't given up. In fact, the Vanguard is now joined by Hive and the tall Nimbus dude, basically everybody else against the Witness. With all these new allies, the Guardian heads back to the Witness's fortress, where the smoky head is still in his giant form. Sure, the Witness still looks scary, but now there are a bunch of heroes standing behind him. So after shooting the Witness in the chest for too long, the Vanguard defeats the Witness by shining light on his bloody face. Begone, cosmic jerk. During the battle though, the Guardian's ghost gets corrupted by darkness and dies. But Cade is heavily against unhappy endings, so the dude transfers his light into the Guardian's ghost to revive it. After doing that selfless act, Cade simply vanishes into the light. Alright, so that's where Destiny 2 wraps up the Light and Darkness saga and kicks off the Fate saga with the Edge of Fate expansion. Of course, the Fate saga has a lot of potential, but this storyline is still fresh. So instead of delivering you a half-baked story, let's discuss the Fate saga pretty quickly. Destiny 2, the Edge of Fate expansion, begins with a new story in which we learn about an unknown group called the Nine. Ooh, 9. Spooky. These 9 extraterrestrial entities send a cryptic message to the Guardian, inviting them to some place called the Kepler. The Guardian is also curious to know who sent the message, and gets going. The Guardian arrives on Kepler. Turns out that the invitation wasn't exclusive, as Lodi, a pre-Golden Age scientist from Earth, was also pulled to the current timeline by the Nine. Anyway, Kepler is an unstable planetoid with a singularity at its core that is beginning to collapse, so the Guardian has to stabilize the singularity and save the solar system. The Guardian learns that 2 factions are already fighting over the singularity, the Fallen and the Vex. The Fallen thinks of the singularity as a god who gives them nutrition in the form of dark matter. The Vex, on the other hand, seeks to control the singularity to start a new golden age. Well, as the Guardian moves ahead, they learn that 9 are just another bunch of sickos. Shockingly, 9 are influencing events to see all possible outcomes. Why? Well, it's because they ultimately want to ditch their current state of being tied to a planet and transcend to something greater. Also, the singularity is none other than one of the 9, a dying one. The Guardian defeats the Fallen, and Vex pretty easily. Afterward, the Drifter stabilizes the singularity using the Hall. We don't know much about the Hall, it's just that the Hall is somehow related to the 9. That's how it could stabilize the singularity. However, it's not all sunshine towards the end as Vex's leader Maya arrives and kills one of the 9. So, the 9 are now 8. Finally, the Guardian also learns of a prophecy that says the universe will die if the 9 do not bind together. Destiny 2 Renegades expansion story shows that one of the 9's deaths has caused a power imbalance in the solar system. Also, the core of the solar system is in a pretty soury state. Among this chaos, we see a region known as the Lawless Frontier. There are factions known as syndicates are trying to eliminate the others and take over the region. The Guardian is sent to the frontier to deal with the situation. But this time, the Guardian's not acting on behalf of the Vanguard, but as a goddamn bounty hunter. Cool. By acting like Boba Fett, the Guardian learns that some factions grow stronger because of abnormal energy, the same he encountered on Kepler. Despite this, the Guardian tries to bring stability to the region, and they do a pretty good job. Okay, that's enough of Light and Darkness for me, guys. It's about time that I move over to some other interesting games, maybe a historical one this time? Meanwhile, you can check out some other videos on the channel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. See ya.